Upon Predators by Dorothy Thomson, taken from the Vegan 1962 edition. When discussing the controversial problem of the predatory scheme, many people use such hackneyed phrases as survival of the fittest, nature red in tooth and claw, and having many other similar utterances which they simply echo without having given any really deep thought to the subject. When I first began to consider the almost universally accepted idea and put it to the test of my own understanding, it seemed to me quite incompatible with a God of wisdom and infinite compassion. Having looked very deeply into the subject, it dawned upon me that if nature is red in tooth and claw, then this must apply to every animal that exists. But we are aware that many animals which are part of nature do not live by this rule, and so we see that this premise is a false one. One most significant fact that occurred to me was that those animals which are not themselves a prey to other creatures stronger than themselves do not multiply too quickly but keep a perfect balance, that we are putting the cart before the horse, and that it is the predators that create an imbalance by killing some other species which nature, in her terrible urgency to preserve at all cost, causes to multiply too quickly. One inescapable fact remains: the animals that are preyed upon multiply at a far greater rate than those that are not. If some species were not preyed upon, it is my belief that nature, in her wisdom, would in time regulate the balance. If a man is himself a primate and internally constructed to live on a diet of fruit and nuts, there must have been a time in the long history of the planet when he fell from grace, and either from depravity or expediency retrogressed by obtaining his food by killing other creatures. If this were the case, and if, as I believe, man is the medium through which the animal kingdom evolves, he could have reflected this attitude in the animal kingdom. That there is a psychic telepathic relationship between man and the animals no one will doubt. Anyone who has kept a companion will see how a dog can pick up the thoughts of their owner and make an immediate response. Through man, the lower kingdoms evolve, and it must ever be that in some mysterious way the higher must help the lower in its evolutionary gain. We evolve ourselves, and though we do not always interpret the truth that they reveal correctly, the light slowly dawns. In the remote history of ancient Egypt, we learn that lions were household pets, had the freedom of the nurseries. If they had been savage creatures, how was this even possible? How could this have been possible? Even if they had been trained, it would have not eliminated a certain amount of risk. Perhaps they were, at the time, vegetarian animals, for they certainly were not regarded with fear. It is my belief that the thoughts of man, both good and ill, affect the animal kingdom. They respond to our emotions, and it is possible for the love and wisdom of a human being to make a savage lion as gentle as a dove. There are many instances of this, and proof is unnecessary. The carnivorous teeth of a primate man could have developed long after his fall, because the form always adapts itself to the mode of life of the creature. It is this adaptability that makes the form of any animal subject to the necessary change. The development of the psychological function causes the anatomical variation. In order to avoid misunderstanding, I do not apply my theories to the reptilian age, for at that time little of mind had emerged from chaos, and the flaming morning of the world had scarcely cooled to be the cradle of infant life. The experiment had just begun, and the great artificer was preparing a suitable form for the future soul to use for its experiences in matter. No doubt there were great conflicting forces in the earth's tempestuous youth, chaos terrible beyond our weak imagining. Those who have made a study on this subject tell us that many reptiles were vegetarian then. Much later, when out of her early travail the world became wiser and older, man would have appeared as a primate. But if man repudiated his higher nature and retrogressed by becoming a meat-eater, this attitude could have reflected itself into the animal kingdom, which is evolving through him. Darkness and light are within us all, for we inherit these from our cosmic Mother Earth, but these opposing forces are the means she uses to bring us to awareness and truth. When the eternal light of truth shines through the darkness, we seek to find an answer and reconciliation with life. If we believe that compassion is the underlying principle of the universe, and if we return to our former way of living in harmony with nature, then surely the animals would be affected by us, and by our own purification, we could purify their kingdom too. Could that be the true meaning of our dominion over them? The power of man to lead them to the light, the future state when man no longer slays his younger brothers, the animals, could be the fulfilling of the prophecy, when the lion shall lie down with the lamb, as they formerly did. But only through man living by the law of harmony could this be possible, for then his vibrations would touch the whole of life, for there is nothing in the whole universe so transforming and potent as this power. The law of the spirit is to give, but the law of the matter is to take. We cannot live by the latter long, for its disintegrating influence soon teaches us that it is the path of pain and sorrow, but our mistakes, in time, will be turned to profit and stored in the soul as conscience. Those who live by the laws of matter alone are red in tooth and claw. This applies not only in its more apparent physical manifestation, but in other aspects of life. We steal happiness from others that we may obtain it for ourselves, but such happiness soon turns to sorrow and remorse, as we all know too well. It is always better to think, when we use a hackneyed phrase, do we believe this thing in the depths of our being, or are we just using a term blindly in our anxiety to continue a habit we enjoy or have not the will to break? Wow, isn't that pertinent and relevant? Think Piers Morgan and avocados. Only by a self-knowledge, by an inward turning to the source of truth, can we come to illumination, and without the quality of compassion we can never come to truth, for these qualities are, in reality, one and the same. Let us consider well, is nature really red in tooth and claw? And is this a universal principle or not? And does every creature in the animal world live by this law or not? I believe the day will dawn when the power of love will sweep away this terrible fallacy of despair, but man must learn his lessons through pain and sorrow. The stream of life moves ever to the ocean of the infinite. What the universal mind intends for us all will be fulfilled. The transforming power that moulds us from the within can never cease. The seed will, in its time, become the flowering oak tree, and man himself will become what our imperfect minds cannot yet comprehend. Somewhere there is a design that we must follow, whether we will it or not, and beneath all the negative influences the transforming quality proceeds, for life will make of us what it will, and could we but rise above the process and see the plan, we would no longer believe in the terrible fallacy that nature is red in tooth and claw.